This is my talking voice.
This is your inside voice.
I was having a moment where like, what is my inside voice? Sometimes I do become loud, but that's okay.
Yeah.
This is mostly it. I'm in my bass register.
This is my bass.
This is my morning voice.
Go real low. How are you?
I'm okay.
Yeah? Are you excited? Do you have stuff to say about this movie?
You should have. I don't think that I like spent it when I watched it on Wednesday with Ricky. But holy shit, did I have a lot to say.
That's what, okay, Ricky, when he was here, who was on the show last week doing Only God Forgives, he was like, when we stopped recording, he was like, I don't know how much like value I provided. I was like, well, we're not here to like provide value to people.
No, and that's also what Ricky says after doing anything.
Literally he works a night at his restaurant, as we talked about, and he's just like, I don't know if I made anyone happy. And it's like, I don't know, you probably did, because there was like a bunch of people here and they paid you money. Yeah.
And they did pay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Unless they literally said, which sometimes they do, you didn't make me happy, then you can probably guarantee that they were pretty happy.
100%.
But like, I'm not providing anyone with knowledge. That's not the plan. I'm just we just want to talk about this thing in a way that it's like, this is what it feels like to experience the film, right?
Oh, Lord.
I was talking to Chris and Ricky about this movie, which is Alien Resurrection. And I was like, I hate this film a lot.
My friend?
Yeah. But I was under the impression you liked it.
Well, okay. I think that it is too complex for me to place my relationship with this film into either hating it or liking it. I can hold both, and frankly neither at the same time.
I'm totally with you now that I've rewatched it this past week, actually.
Okay.
I'm kind of, there's so much about this movie I dislike.
Yes.
A very like large portions and aspects of it that I don't like.
Yeah.
And lots that I'm like, there's a movie underneath that could exist, and it doesn't.
That's exactly how I feel about it. Yeah, that this, I can see, like I can run like an analytical treatment of this. I can understand what happened here. I understand what 1997 did to this. That said, there is something beneath every mistake made.
Yeah.
or not, you know what, not even mistakes, choices. There is something beneath every choice made where I'm like, this could have been very fruitful and very exciting. And it just simply isn't.
Yes.
And there it is.
Oh, okay. Because I have so much to say about that because of one of the prominent creators involved in this film. But first, M, welcome to the Low Ceiling.
Hi, my name's M.
You're M, friend.
I'm a friend.
Tattooist.
I do tattoo.
My tattooist.
I've tattooed John.
Not like personally, but like you're the only person who's... No, you're not the only person who's given me a tattoo.
I'm one of two.
One of two people who've given me a tattoo.
It's an honor.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, it's an honor to be tattooed. You're a great artist.
Thank you.
I said this to Chris and Ricky. There's absolutely no promotional value to you being here. So we can talk about you as a real person or not, or we can just call you M. It doesn't really matter.
Oh, I don't think anyone needs to know me.
No.
And if they listen and they're interested, then maybe I'll be on here again.
Then comment on the post.
No, I'm not anyone.
You're important.
I'm very important.
Yeah, you're important to me. You're important to the process here.
And we've been talking about film for like probably a decade.
Well, I said on the last episode, which will come out in a couple weeks from now, but we did talk about you.
Chris and Ricky and you talked about me.
Me and Ricky talked about you.
Oh, what did you talk about me?
Well, first of all, you did not like Only God Forgives, which is totally a fine opinion to have.
Thank you for permissioning me to have the most insane feelings I had about that show or movie.
Secondly, because I've been thinking about it since New Year's Eve, our conversation about Michael Clayton being a good movie or not, I did mention that. And I was like, because I thought about it because it was such a funny conversation because I was like, well, yeah, Michael Clayton's a great movie. And then I was like, wait, is it a great movie? And I'm like, of course it's a good movie.
I tripped you up.
And then, you fucked me up for a couple weeks there. Where I was like, do I even trust myself? It's like, I saw Michael Clayton when I was a teenager and I loved it and I've loved it ever since. But maybe M was like seeing something totally different. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
I don't know.
I think what happened is I think I hold a position of like a scholarly peer, right?
Yeah,
like I'm an esteemed colleague of yours.
Oh yeah.
And so when I came in and was like, I don't know about this film, one that you had fully, like, comfortably and thoroughly categorized as a successful and lauded cinematic experience. I shook you.
I think it felt so much, not that this was your intention, but it felt like a very hot take, because most people, like, I think the general consensus around Michael Clayton is like, it's a great film in a great year of films. But then, like, I don't think Chris has ever seen it. I don't think Ricky's ever seen it. So I've never really talked to anyone about it. And I'm like, no, but this is a good movie. I had to show it to Pri. I was like, because I told you, I was like, Pri, you have to watch this. This is a fucking incredible movie. And she was like, yeah, it really is.
Oh, so Pri saw. So, like, to be honest, I've not watched it.
Not since then?
No, because I'm like, I've been distracted. I've been watching a lot of anime. I've had priorities, but like, that is how kind of middling and tricky my first experience was, that I have not picked it up again because I haven't been able to revisit. I was just diagnosed this past week with ADD, and now I'm like, well, this is why I can't finish things that I'm not quite thoroughly invested in.
I think that would, I can see why that could affect your viewing pleasure of watching Michael Clayton. Certainly, it's
it's an accessibility barrier inside this movie. Like, I'm othered by Michael Clayton because of my neurodivergence.
You know how like some movies have like a disclaimer being like, we provide like audio description for people who are hearing impaired and stuff. Maybe they have one where it's like, people who have ADD, hold off.
One sec. One sec.
Really decide if you want to watch this film.
You will need strategies. You will need systems in place to finish this film.
They should do it like, so as like a weird marketing thing. Like, have you ever heard of those there's some companies that are like, we're releasing like The Sopranos. They were like, we're releasing the entire Sopranos in like 30-second increments on TikTok, which is an absurd thing to do.
Like, they take 30 seconds from each episode and slap it all together to make whoa. No, I've not seen this.
So it's like thousands of small videos, which is weird because TikTok, you don't watch anything sequentially. No. And I'm, as a huge fan of The Sopranos, I'm a little insulted, but it's like, maybe Michael Clayton, that would work for Michael Clayton, where it's like, I can watch 5 30-second increments of this film.
I'll take it.
And for someone with ADD.
That is something that that reminds me of, like, I've watched movies and shows at like 1.5 times speed. Just because I'm like, this is taking
like shows too, and shows and movies at 1.5.
Oh yeah,
I've heard of that with podcasts, but
no. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Like, when I can tell, I'm like, this dialogue is very slow. This is spacious and very, very slow. And sometimes I'm like into that. Like, if something sinks me into the place deep enough that I'm so bought in that like I don't have a body anymore and I'm just in the drift with the film, and so I can stay there even if it's slow. Like Pride and Prejudice 2005. I'm riding that wave.
Oh yeah,
I'm not going anywhere.
That's a real vibe movie.
Oh yes, but if it does not put me in that place, and I can feel like I'm getting like little cat shimmies, like my little bum, my little shoulders are going, I'm like, I'm wanting to move. I'll just kick that up a speed.
Are you talking about Only God Forgives now? With that?
Oh my God. Okay. I know that we're meant to talk about a different movie, but I will say about Only God Forgives, it was so profound how that movie had me in a throat hold.
Yeah.
Like, I could not look away. It had me by the neck. I was in the pit. And I hated every second of it.
Oh,
and normally,
so
like halfway through movies that I dislike a lot, like I'm out. Like I left theaters. I left Valerian or whatever it was called. Like, or I didn't leave it, but
Planet of a Thousand Planets.
Planet of a Thousand Planets. I remember none of them.
Yeah.
And I hated that and wanted to go. But with Only God Forgives, I was like, I'm not moving. I'm not permission. I can't move.
You're gonna stick it out.
It bewitched me.
Yeah.
And then it made me watch it.
Something we talked about was like, it's an incredible film to look at.
Yes.
But it's also okay to not want to engage with a lot of the content of it because it's a difficult movie. Like, and it's like a lot of the thematic material is like, ew.
Oh,
like,
it's so ew.
It's so dirty, you know, and so
it's nasty.
It's under and kind of cruel. Like, it's cruel. Like, not I don't think in the intent, but I don't think like as like the artistic intent. Like, I don't think Ryan Gosling is like, yeah, I want to make this movie that's like really hardcore.
Ryan Gosling, most violent man on the planet.
Yeah. Academy Award nominee for the film Barbie.
No, absolute maniac.
Yeah, he is vicious.
Yeah,
but I think like it's okay to not want to engage with a lot of the stuff that's happening in the movie because it's so fucking. It's intense. That's
I know. And what's funny is that like I don't mind an intense film.
No, I know.
You know what I mean? Like I can handle violence. I have a threshold. It's okay. I think that movie, it failed to convince me at any moment. And therefore I'm just like, oh, you are needless cruelty. Like you are disorganized and disorganized violence and not even in like a surreal or chaotic way, but in a way where I'm like, I don't like the editing. Like,
yeah, fair.
I'm
That's
like,
okay.
some walked one way and then entered from a different direction. I'm like, this is nuts. And to the point where I was like, I think the premise of this whole thing is some kind of surreal purgatory, or like this is an unreal liminal, like cursed and haunted space. And that's why everything is so like fucked in this movie. It was the only way that I could rationalize it.
That's so Ricky used purgatory as a term as well.
It's because I screamed it at him 45 times throughout the film.
Like all of those characters are trapped in this
single one
thing. Yeah.
Every single one. And that cop, I'm not sure whether he is the devil, Jesus, an angel, like Saint Peter, the judge, Chiron,
or just a regular guy,
or maybe he's just a cop, oink oink, who was also in purgatory.
Maybe he wants to just sing karaoke and cut off hands like a normal police officer does
with his shirt sword.
Yeah. which is it's not in that shirt.
It's not in that shirt.
He cannot keep the sword in the shirt.
What is holding the sword in the shirt?
There's lots of shots of him from the back turning around to the front, and then he draws the sword, and I'm like, that wasn't in there.
No.
Also, I think about this every time I watch that movie. How far does he have to reach up to get it out of the shirt?
He has the longest arms.
He must. Yeah.
No, if they were to ratio everyone on the set, his arms are like freaky, like sea urchin dick. He's got like the equivalent by an arm in reach. It's
like out of proportion with his 100% an average man's body.
Because exactly that. If you are pulling that sword out of the back of your shirt, the chances of you, especially considering how sharp it was, as evidenced by how easily he sliced through everyone's bodies. That collar's cut.
Yeah.
He's going through a shirt, at least 2 shirts a day.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's what helps him be a very talented martial artist. But it is like, it's just so absurd. Like I'm like, he's just as the tip comes out of the shirt, he is ripping the back.
100%.
And it's not even like you said, it's not even just like he's slicing through a couple inches of the shirt back and the collar.
Oh yeah. He's parting, like it seems out. Like,
I'm really glad we got to talk about the important parts of the movie.
Oh my god. How did this man get a sword out of his shirt so many times?
These are the questions that I think people want to know, though.
And it buoys my thesis that like he is a heavenly figure. Like there's impossible things that he's doing, specifically the sword in the shirt.
Tune into our show because we talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Yes.
Anyway, this podcast is on Only God Forgives 2.
Wait, are you saying that Alien Resurrection holds the position of Only God Forgives 2?
100%.
It's the spiritual successor of Only God Forgives.
Alien Resurrection might not even be the spiritual successor of an Alien film.
No,
honestly.
I think this is the zeitgeist. Like this is the leading line of thought.
Okay. Let's talk about Alien Resurrection. I have very strong feelings about the Alien franchise, even though I don't consider myself like a rabid fan of it. Weird thing about Resurrection, and we can start off here. Alien is a great movie. Aliens is almost as good as Alien. I like Aliens more. Alien 3, I've had lots of talks recently that like lots of people hate that movie. It's actually not bad.
It's not bad.
It's directed by David Fincher. And people are like, "Oh, this is shit," and it's like, "Well, that's because he went on to make like a bunch of very good films." And like,
this is early career.
It. Yeah, he hates
felt
it
sad
too.
about it. Things happened to him. Like, yeah.
And then everyone, the zeitgeist of the Alien franchise seems to be like, "Fuck Alien 3, Alien Resurrection happened. Fuck Prometheus." And I'm like, no, but Prometheus is so good, and people seem to forget that Alien Resurrection was so bad.
No. Yeah, people don't know how good they got it.
No, like when Prometheus came out, and I said this on our Alien Covenant episode, it's like people seem to forget that they just had one of the worst Alien films to be ever created come out, and they're still upset about Prometheus, which is a good movie.
It's greedy and selfish.
Yeah, I think it's the audience's fault. That's all I'm saying.
Every single time.
Okay, so tell me about Alien Resurrection. You are in a weird space with it, as I am.
Yes. It put me there. And I want to acknowledge that like you, big Alien franchise. I'm not like a mega fan in that I don't have like incredible factoid knowledge about all of these films. Like I didn't know that Jean-Pierre Whatnot directed
Jean-Pierre Jeunet. Yeah.
Jean-Pierre Jeunet. I didn't know that he directed Alien Resurrection, like offhand, until I saw the name. I was like, who is that? I don't know who that is.
You know what big movie he also directed?
What?
Amelie.
I felt so still in my soul just now hearing that. I don't really know what to do with that yet. I'm going to need to sit with that for probably 45% of this experience together. Wow. But I have watched Alien and Aliens so many times and have watched all of the contemporary additions to this series at least twice each. I agree with you. Prometheus was not bad at all. We can hold it in critique, but it was not bad. Alien Resurrection, I think, is the product of a couple decades passing since the initial Alien film. I think it is also a byproduct of James Cameron, his influence on the series. And I think it is also a response to Alien 3. And that all of these factors and many more that I haven't noted yet that we will discuss birthed. Keyword birth, because there's so much of birth. There's so much to say about birth and motherhood and like maiden mother crone in all of this. But yeah, I think that there are some variables that contributed to Alien Resurrection being what it was when it was, and in that way, it's absolutely like a bastard film, and not in a cute way.
Yeah, it's so weird that like to me, the most successful part of this movie is the absolutely just like downright disturbing body splicing stuff, which I want to talk about because if you look over on my shelf, I have a DVD from the library of the film Annihilation, which I believe we've talked about. There's some disturbing body slicing in that.
Yes.
And I watched it yesterday because I was like, there's certain aspects of that remind me of this. And I was like, I gotta watch it. It's a great movie. But the most successful, like the most successful part of this is like, as you said, like the bastardization, and the themes of the movie are around like sticking a bunch of stuff together in these bodies to make a bastardization of a human alien hybrid kind of thing, which is disgusting.
Oh my God.
And this movie, no part of it really works in harmony.
No, it's an incredibly discordant film.
Yeah. And okay, so it's written by Joss Whedon, right?
Yes.
Now we got to talk about him because I will, from my own point of view, I've always hated Joss Whedon and his work.
Yes.
And I've always thought it was overrated and terrible. And then when it came out recently that everyone was like, he's also a huge asshole.
You're like,
I was like, fuck yes.
Vindicated.
Now,
correct.
Okay, I read a long story about that whole thing, about what happened, like the downfall of Joss Whedon. I think it's on Vulture. I'll link to it somewhere. And it humanized him a little bit. And it didn't excuse any of his behavior, but it did like, I kind of understood more why he was like the way he was. But this movie is so poorly written. Yes. And he later, like years later, was like, oh, they fucked it up. They didn't shoot my script properly. My question is, what is this movie look like if it's working? If it is shot properly? Because it seems like a Joss Whedon script.
I know. I completely agree with you. It was knowing Joss Whedon, like knowing Buffy, knowing Dollhouse, knowing the Avengers, and like what else am I missing? Like these are like there's
Firefly.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. I was like, there's one that I'm missing. That like I'm like these are. I find his writing. I find his writing to be, when it's done well, I'm like, it's charming. It's idiosyncratic. It's specific. There's intelligence. It's playful. But I also find it to be kind of like heavy-handed.
Yes.
So when we started watching it and I saw like Joss Whedon wrote this, I was like, whoa, that's going to completely reframe my experience of this script and its delivery in this movie. And I found it to be so unlike anything I understand Joss Whedon to be that it makes sense to hear that there was some wild editing and just like production chicanery, and it got pulled away from him. It doesn't look like what he intended it to be, because there's little glimmers throughout the film of like character work and silliness, like when Ron Perlman is like, so Ripley, what'd you do when you like met that alien, like, and goes into like this Valley Girl moment after being positioned as like an absolutely psychopathic murderer.
It's so funny you bring up that scene, because that scene specifically, I was always like, Was Ron Perlman meant to say this originally?
I know.
Like, it seems like it was supposed to be Winona who was meant to actually ask Ripley about that.
I know.
It doesn't seem, because Ron Perlman's character is not like that at all.
No, he's meant to be very threatening. It feels like an absolute Frankenstein moment, and there's a bunch of little Frankenstein moments throughout that make me think like, oh, that kind of felt more like Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
And then but the moment you see it, then it's gone, and then we're back to everyone being so hostile, so aggressive, so intense, and Sigourney being
coy.
A snake woman. Yeah.
Yeah. My criticism of this film for like a really long time, speaking of Sigourney, was like, it seemed to be like a tragic misreading of Sigourney Weaver's character from Alien and Aliens.
I know.
And Alien 3, because whenever I think of like, it took me a long time to, okay, there's this image of Ripley and the like simple kind of like annoying girl power way that people talk about it is like, she's just a badass. And I'm like, Ripley's not a badass. Ripley is competent.
Oh my God,
and
exactly.
Decisive.
Yeah.
And it's like so much more deep than just like, she's just a badass.
No, she's not like kicking through doors. She's following protocol.
Yeah. And
like,
she's smart.
She's smart. She's observant. She's talented and skilled. Yes. But is willing to square up to really hard decisions and really hard situations.
Yeah.
And draws on a strength that none of us can understand. And
admirable.
She's admirable.
Yeah.
But she's also just like a person. Like she's a pilot.
Yeah. Like I watched Aliens the other day because it's a fucking great movie. And
it's
also
so
I watched Alien and Aliens, and I was super ambitious. I was like, I'm going to watch Alien 3. I didn't get to it.
We never make it to
That's
Alien
okay.
3. No.
But Aliens is like amazing. And I always think of the scene where they go into the hive for the first time and everyone's getting killed essentially, and she's like screaming into the microphone, and the one guy like turns off her mic, and she's like, do something, and then she goes and she turns the vehicle on and bashes through the wall.
Yeah, because they can't get out.
Yeah. And I was like, she's telling this guy what to do. She's like, they need to fall back. And like, that's what always strikes me as like, there's definitely a badassery to it, but there's such a simplistic reading of her as just like strong feminist badass woman. And I'm like, I think of her as like, I would want to work for her.
Oh my God.
You know,
I want to work
she would
with
make
her,
the decisions
for her.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I could trust her.
Yeah.
And that's, and exactly like building on what you said, it's a theme throughout all of the movies that she is saying things and people are not listening to her.
Yes.
Which is that's the like the sexist undercurrent of like these films is like her position as a woman and how that influences, amongst other things, how people respond to her and how her voice is received and what she's able to do and what she has to do to be able to do the things that she wants to do.
Yeah.
From movie one onward. Then
so that was my criticism of like this movie. I was like, it just seems to be a misreading of Ripley as a character.
Yes.
Then I was like, I paid more attention to it, and I was like, oh, they're like compositing a character played by Sigourney Weaver that's not really Ripley.
Yeah.
And it's a dumb character. And it doesn't work because of Sigourney Weaver. Because it's like you're seeing Ripley, and she's not acting like Ripley, and she says some things that you're just kind of like, this just wouldn't come out of Ripley's mouth, but then it sort of is a different character because she's like cloned and part alien. Yeah,
like they're acknowledging that there has been kind of some distancing from original Ripley, and this is like effectively a perversion 8 removed or 200 years removed from our source material. And so of course she won't be the same.
But she sucks.
It's
the problem.
No, there's when you just said things that she says that Ripley would not say, like when she walks in out of nowhere after being truly like animalistic and like kind of just like a different beast, and she walks into like, I don't know, a room, a ship, everyone's there, I don't know where they are, and she says, who do I have to fuck to get off this boat? And I'm like, Sigourney, like what? Like there was so many moments like that where I'm like, yeah, their handling of her.
That line is absurd to the point of being insulting to everybody.
It blew my hair back.
Yeah.
And she does like, Sigourney can have like a bravado, like, but it's because she has to come in with big voice because no one listens to her. But then like, oh my gosh, I went so deep into this watching it on Wednesday, which is that there is this progression of sexualization throughout the 4 movies that I think permissioned them to be able to write that line as an example for her in Alien Resurrection.
Yeah.
Because throughout all the movies, Ripley in no way sexualizes herself.
No.
In the first movie, she
it's a deeply unsexy film.
Despite
being about like there's so much like sexual symbology in it.
Exactly that. And so she in that film is positioned like with that in mind as maiden. Like she is not to be fucked, but the only things that are violent toward her are inherently attempting to fuck her, like Ash putting the magazine in her mouth and the alien itself and its sexual symbology but the only time that she actually is presented as a sexualizable being is at the end, after she has demonstrated to us her competency, her devotion to protocol, and her ability to respond to like highly stressful situations
and save a cat
save the cat.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes, Jonesy. And then she like doffs her gear and reveals herself in her underwear, and you're like, right, you're smart and hot. Okay. Yeah. And then in movie 2, she's complicated by the concept of motherhood.
And she gets there without much, kind of like in a Virgin Mary kind of way. She like gets to motherhood without the sex part, right?
Exactly.
Which also happens in this movie. She is a mother by dint of her clone has the embryo inside her that they take out. Right?
Exactly.
And yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
And
Go
then,
on. Yeah.
She wakes up and it's like, oh, she's a mother. We're told she's a mother. Oh, but her daughter's dead. So she's ejected once again from like the motherhood position within the first 15 minutes of the film, and then has a surrogate daughter in Newt throughout the rest of it. So it's very much about her being a mother, but this is the first movie where we have a flirtation between her and Hicks,
yeah.
That's it. With
surrogate
Hicks,
father, surrogate husband,
100%. And so we're like, oh, Ripley can respond sexually to someone, and someone can value her sexually while still like acknowledging and valuing her autonomy and her skills as a woman. Like when he holds out that gun and says, "Feel the weight," I'm like, this is as close as they're ever going to get to fucking, and they know it, and it's still so hot.
James Cameron really likes that like replacement for except for like Titanic is an outlier and stuff, and Terminator happens, but like a replacement for sex on screen with something symbolic is like something that comes across in lots of James Cameron's work.
This makes sense, especially with like guns. Like
but like Avatar, it's like the hair, that detaching the hair to each other, and there is
shaft and a shaft and receptor.
And is like the Titanic not just like one big shaft after all? Like honestly,
it's 100% a dick. No, the Titanic is a phallus. I won't hear otherwise. And then in the third Alien movie, she is her surrogate husband, surrogate father is dead. Surrogate daughter also dead.
Callous.
So intense. And then she's put into a place surrounded by men who fully admit that they are murderers and rapists. And so she feels inherently, one, so unsafe, possibly the most unsafe she's ever been. But then 2, shaves her head, begins and like dresses like all the men there, and becomes desexualized and almost like degendered in that space. And yet that's the movie when she fucks Charles Dance.
Oh, does she?
I think that she and Charles have sex.
I think so.
They have sex, and then he's immediately killed by the alien.
Right, yeah. And also, I just got Charles Dance in that movie is unreal. He's so good.
He's good in every
he's an incredible actor.
He's so good. I remember falling in love with him when I watched it and being so sad that he died.
I had no real idea who he was until like Game of Thrones, kind of.
Totally.
And then going back and watching Alien 3 and being like, oh, that's a young Charles Dance. He looks the same, but that's a young Charles Dance. But he's fucking amazing. He's so good.
He is one of those eerie British men where like he ages 10 years across 45.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
He's been 60 for 70 years. Yeah.
Oh my God. So honestly, someone should check on him. Like face the Charles Dance.
Charles, call in if you're okay.
Oh yeah.
The line is open.
It's open. Are you still with us? How old are you now? So she is desexualized, degendered, in an unsafe sexual space, does have sex, loses that lover, and then by the end she's like, oh, I'm mother again, but I have to kill me and my baby. And then we enter Alien Resurrection, where she's like, I have been spliced, diced, and now I'm this creature, and I am fully sexualized, fully
Yeah.
sexualizing myself.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to fuck me. I'm the most lethal I've ever been.
There's like also very few women around in this, and Winona's a robot. So,
Winona's
yeah.
a robot.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to motherhood again. She's like, I've already had the baby. And then I fall into the queen and I get birthed. And then the baby gets birthed and doesn't want its mother, it wants me. And then I have to kill my baby again. I'm like, the journey, the sexual / motherhood / birth journey throughout these 4 movies is nuts.
It's great.
Like, it's nuts.
I don't think I've ever heard someone lay it out so succinctly. That's like very interesting.
Thank
so
you.
I've never really thought about that. I've seen those themes, but hearing you kind of lay them out film by film is like, yeah, that's perfect.
It's just a wild ride. Like she's on a wild, and so by reaching the end and her saying things like, who do I have to fuck to get off this boat? Or like, in the basket, when she's just playing hoops, when she's just playing basketball on the boat, they give her a ball and a hoop and they're like, here's your activity, you animal. And she's like, I'm about to play like sexy, like contact basketball with Ron Perlman. I'm like, the vibe has changed. She got a manicure.
Yeah.
Her hair got dyed darker. She's wearing mascara.
Just the fingernails painted the whole time, which I found very like weird.
So weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
because you see
alien males.
they really show them off too. Like you, especially in the basketball scene, which, okay, love Sigourney Weaver. She definitely just learned to play basketball like the day before she shot that.
100%.
I don't think she's ever held a basketball.
No,
in
her
life.
height, like folks, height can't save you.
Yeah.
Height does not make you good at basketball. She's 5'11", her reach is nuts, and she was like flip flapping that ball around.
Yeah.
Like,
but like it's so interesting the choices you make, because it's just kind of like basketball is such an easy sport to film, but it's also like she clearly doesn't know how to play.
No. and then in that I'm like, you've sullied her, because in every other movie, everything that she does, I believe every part of it. When she gets in that loader and says, where do you want it? I'm like, yeah, bitch. like, oh my God. And then she's playing basketball and I'm like, not only does it feel so ridiculous that basketball happened in this movie, like that there was a basketball 200 years in the future. 200 years in the future they're playing basketball. Then she's not even good at it.
I know.
And she's meant to be like the peak of the species. And I'm sleepy.
And it's like they make her look good, but it's like you can't really hide it from even someone who, like, I played basketball when I was in like high school. So it's like, and even I know it's like she is not.
No, they thought they could get away with it by putting her in like a padded quilted leather vest with like a Ziggy Stardust like sculpted collar and leather pants and like leather weird poofy bag boots, and they were like, that's basketball, right? And we're like, sorry, no.
Yeah,
it didn't do it.
Unless I see her in one single take dunk the ball and shoot a 3 and drain a free throw all in one go without any fancy editing.
Basketball didn't happen here.
I'm not believing it. They spent half the special effects budget on that basketball going into the hoop.
They did. Oh my God. The rigging required to get someone to dunk from 30 feet up is...
What must have happened is that she must have thrown it to someone and then someone else shot it in like an arc, because it does look good, but it's like in an arc because it does leave the frame, and then
it goes when it leaves frame, it goes into a net, and there's a PA suspended from the ceiling who just goes yoink and just swishes that. But no, it's piano hands. Yeah, I'm like, that's not her ball. Yeah.
This is the sword coming out of the shirt of Alien Resurrection.
No, it is. Yeah, it's
like
shouldn't work.
I just don't believe it.
It doesn't work. Yeah, impossible.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I went on a bit of a tangent about her, about what she's become. And I think that so it's like this sexual culmination, but also I can't help but think of the 90s and like my memories of like watching CSI, and the whole movie to me, the coloring and the filters of it, everything looks acidic and yellow and brown and green. And the camera movements are so swoopy. It's like we're on a bat at all times. Yeah,
you're right. It's such a weirdly filmed, and then there's like things about it that are so like, even though it's like 1997, you're just kind of like, why does that look so shitty?
I know.
The aliens look great. I have to say, this is maybe the best they look until Covenant.
Yeah.
But like they look, well, that doesn't say much because it's the only film that, whatever. They look great in Covenant because of like Ridley Scott, great special effects.
Oh yeah.
Oh, knows his shit.
Yeah.
But in this movie, like a lot of the CGI, like the aliens look good. But then there's like that scene where they're flying above Earth and the clouds are in the window, and you're just like, that looks like a Windows screensaver just like cut into the film.
So flat.
It's so bizarre.
I'm like, they're not there.
There's so many decisions in this movie that are just like, so the director couldn't speak English. So like they had to translate, and then they have a Joss Whedon script, and it's like, you're pairing him with the worst guy.
This is, wow.
Yeah.
He didn't speak English.
No, he needed a person to translate for him.
I'm breathless right now.
Yeah.
And then Joss is in there.
And then assumedly, what I think happened was like, I assume Joss wrote all of his stuff and then was like, I have to go run 16 shows, so I can't be there. And that's where the kind of split happens. It's
that
like,
makes sense.
Here's my script, you have to shoot it. I can't be there.
And then I was like, oh, I don't speak English. And so suddenly there's like there's 10
huge
sets of
disconnect.
hands on this for translating and direction over top of direction, and also like French sensibility, film sensibilities meeting like American film sensibilities, and what, again, keyword like Frankenstein. It just feels like a very, again, discordant movie where thematically, aesthetically, tonally, there's a lot of things in friction with each other. And sometimes there's little moments where I'm like, ooh, that was good. But I can count like on one hand, the little moments.
One of the huge issues I have with the movie though is like, when you think of it, as I said, with like, what would this movie look like if the script worked? Like, say Joss Whedon directed it. Now, Joss Whedon is a capable director. I hate his writing, but he can direct a movie. He's made some of the biggest movies of all time. But it is like, if this is working, like, would I even really like this movie if they shot the script?
Oh, honestly.
Because there's lots of aspects about it story-wise that I just, like, despise. You know?
I think that thinking of the script as I know it from the movie, I'm not sure how you could resurrect that. Like,
hello.
Hi. Whoopsie. But without major acting scene shifts, like they would have to really kind of recannibalize what they're working with to bring some life into that script and some naturalness, and which reminded me of like where I found that so evident was there was these little moments that between Call, which is Winona Ryder's character, the android, Call's crew from the Betty. So Ron Perlman, the actor from CSI, CSI Las Vegas, whose name I don't know, but he was the guy, his name was Christie. The character's name is Christie in Alien Resurrection. He has the guns built into his arms.
He has such an absurd line that I want to talk about later, but yeah.
Oh, we're going to get into it.
He's a great actor. He's really good though.
I watched him in CSI first, loved him, and then when I was old enough, watched this and was like, whoa, 1 second. So that crew, it's the first time in these movies where we don't have a crew or a community that has some kind of like camaraderie. Yeah. And I think that there's moments that in Resurrection that highlight like we want there to be a camaraderie. We want this to be a hard but knit crew, but it's so few and far between.
They seem to hate each other.
They hate each other, and they all seem, for the most part, like quite monstrous, like genuinely like horrible people, like unlovable, unconnectable people. And so that to me was a huge void point where I'm like, I want to believe in this crew, even if they start off ruined and nasty, that there is a coming together throughout that they end up acknowledging like, oh, we actually like are a great crew and we love each other, or at least we want to stick together, whatever their equivalent is. And that isn't there. And that's a huge pock in a lost opportunity in this.
When I saw this movie, I had tried to watch Firefly, which I profoundly hate.
I love this.
Okay, do you love Firefly?
I haven't watched it in the past like maybe 5 or 7 years. I like Firefly. Okay. Like I've had like fandom experiences of Firefly.
So admittedly, like I only watched the first episode and I was just like, I cannot stand this show. I really don't like it. And it's obviously still people talk about it like, it's like, oh, the show that never should have been canceled. And I was like, I don't know about that.
Honestly, John, a refreshing interpretation.
Thank you. That strokes my ego very well. But like I've never liked Firefly. And when I watched this movie and then I was like, oh, Joss Whedon wrote this, I was like, this idea of having this like pirate crew or a crew of criminals, smugglers or whatever, I was like, this is such a Joss Whedon choice.
He loves it.
And yet they have no chemistry, as I assume as the crew in Firefly do.
Yes.
You know, like when you get into that's what people love about the show is like you have all these very Joss Whedon actors who have chemistry, whereas in this, like, I have to say, I love Perlman, but he's so fucking annoying in this movie.
Oh my God, he's all over the place.
He's just so, I just hate his performance.
I wanted them to, like, with him specifically. Yeah, I'm obsessed with Ron Perlman. I love him. I've seen, funnily enough, I've seen a lot of movies that he's been in.
Yeah.
And I think that he was so wasted.
Yeah.
And absolutely tonally chaotic. I'm like, is he a psychopath that we need to be watching out for throughout the whole thing? Like, is he a violent and murderous person who's a loose cannon and will betray everyone at the drop of a hat? Is he also a himbo? Is he also?
Can you explain that to me?
Oh, a himbo is like a man who is a bimbo.
Okay, got it.
There was moments throughout where I'm like, he's a big, juicy man.
Yeah.
He's big and strong, but he's being silly and kind of funny and also like not super smart. Like when he went up and asked Ripley, like, so like Ripley, like, what'd you do when you met that alien?
Such a weird fucking
that moment,
scene.
I was like, that to me is himbo. Like that. I'm like, he's a big meat boy.
And which like, why couldn't the guy from CSI played that? Because he doesn't get a lot of development, to be honest.
No,
like, he's got cool guns.
Yep.
He obviously he cares for the man in the wheelchair because he carries him up the ladder and then sacrifices himself.
Yeah, that's the thing. He has loyalty.
But he doesn't get a lot else out of that.
No, except I've been meaning to bring this up from the get-go as to whether we are talking about the theatrical release or the extended cut.
I only watched the version on Disney Plus, which I assume is not extended.
That's got to be the theatrical release. It ends with them looking at the clouds,
yes.
Right? Okay, so that's the version that I had always seen. Because I think we had we had a box set.
There was a very, very famous Alien box set of the Alien quadrilogy.
Yeah.
Which was like, it had like the ultimate set of all the Alien films up until then. And it was like a big deal on DVD. I think I had it, but I didn't delve too deep into it.
I think I had possibly the VHS set
in
my house. But I also could be confusing it with Star Wars. But anyway, doesn't matter. The important thing is that I'd always seen the version where it ends with Call and Ripley looking into the clouds as they re-enter Earth's atmosphere.
A nice ending, I think.
Nice ending. And when I streamed it to watch it with Ricky, the version that I found was the extended cut.
Interesting.
And so there was all these moments throughout, little moments and scenes where I was like, I don't remember this. This is so much longer than I thought it was going to be. Like the conversation between, oh goodness, the absolutely lecherous captain of the Betty. His name's like Elgin or something.
Yeah, played by Michael Wincott.
Who I love that actor. I loved him.
Killed it in Nope.
Oh my God.
He's got the voice of like, well, sort of the devil, but it's really the voice of an angel. Like that's what he's well known for.
100%. He's always
amazing voice.
Amazing voice.
And I'd forgotten that he dies so soon in this film. But yes. So there's a conversation between him and
that actor who he's one of like the colonels or the generals in there, and he's got very big
eyebrows.
Yes, the eyebrows, very fuzzy. Yeah. And I remember him specifically from Casper. He was in no, that's a lie. He was not in Casper. He was in I think the Addams Family. He was in Addams Family. Whoever that actor is, very iconic in form. I don't know what his name is, but anyway, they have a conversation. It is 1,000 years long in the extended cut, and I was like, wow, I didn't know I could care less about two men and speaking. And they were both just like nasty army, nasty, like sexually perverse man talking about nasty smuggled human bodies. And I was like, this is crazy.
The whole like inciting premise of this film where it's like, we brought you people. It's like, ew.
I'm like,
it's
my
so
God.
Gross.
My God.
And I had thought I hadn't seen this movie for years because I did not like it. No. And then I watched it maybe last year when I subscribed to Disney Plus. I was like, hey, they have all the Alien movies. I watched all of them multiple times while I worked at home at my job when I was like, what do I do here?
You absolutely watch Alien.
I watch all of the Alien films multiple times through the series, just being like, these are all pretty good except for one. And
which one, John?
This one. And I had recalled that I was like, I thought the aliens got loose and then the smugglers broke onto the ship, being like, hey, this ship's just sitting here, we should break onto it. But then I was like, oh, they're like invited aboard to bring them in, and then all hell breaks loose.
Honestly, I didn't remember that either. And not because like I think I had like a difference.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And also again, the editing, the writing, everything is so disjointed that like I feel like my younger mind, because like I don't remember I think the last time I watched it was probably in like my early, maybe mid 20s. And so God knows what I'm remembering from that.
So how does the extended cut end?
Oh, okay, wait, two things.
Tell me, yes.
One is that going back to Christy, who did not have as much screen time as honestly his kind of character build benefited from.
That actor is Gary Dourdan. That's his name.
How do you say his last name?
Dourdan?
Dourdan.
It's like Dourdan.
Oh yeah, Dourdan.
Dourdan.
Gary Dourdan. Okay, love Gary Dourdan. He gave a very like, I think he gave like an enthusiastic and committed performance throughout this entire movie. God bless him.
I think he was on level with like the tone of the film.
Absolutely. Yeah. There in the extended cut, there is a scene right before they're beginning to go into the water. And they're all like squaring up to go into scary water. And he and the random army grunt who ends up with them,
who's in Breaking Bad much later in his career.
What?
Yeah. He's well known because I believe if you look at his IMDb, it's silly, but if you look at his IMDb for like so much of his career, and you look at every role, they are all the same like Latino name.
Yeah,
he's like he plays this in everything, and it's like he's like in Training Day, he has the same name. He's like it's very typecasty and stuff. He did go on. Yes, he went on to be in Breaking Bad and had like a very successful career from that. Yeah.
Was he in the first season or two? He played that the
very out of control drug dealer.
Oh my God.
Yeah, same guy.
Oh, iconic.
Yeah,
good for him.
He's a very good actor. Yeah.
So in this in Alien Resurrection, he kind of starts at first as like he's army grunt, but he also like shares information, like he's holding information, he's giving them contextual information from his position of knowledge. And then he has this absolutely bro convo with Christy before they go into the water, where basically maybe this is like a neurodivergent thing. I struggled to understand the tone of their conversation. I couldn't tell at first whether he was being threatening and
that's the fault of the movie. Don't blame yourself.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't tell if he's being threatening towards Christy and like judgmental, like in kind of a sarcastic, shitty way, or if they're actually having like a really cute like a little bromance moment where he's like, hey dude, like nice guns. Like what's up with those guns? And then Christy's like, I got nice guns. And he's like, yeah, you do. And they had this little chat.
It's amazing.
And I was like, this is gay. I want these two men to fall in love. And then they go into the water. But that is not, there's a bunch of little extra interactions like that throughout the whole thing. And then it ends. It blew my mind, John. So like they're going back into Earth's atmosphere, and I'm like, they're going to look into the clouds, and this moment heals you. This moment like takes care of you after the insanity that is this movie. That's not the case. They fully re-enter Earth's atmosphere. They land on the outskirts of apocalyptic, destroyed like San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
And they land and they're like, it's desolate, it's barren, it's destroyed. I don't even know if there's human civilization on Earth anymore. And Ripley and Call are sitting on top of like a destroyed refrigerator and are like, so what are you gonna do now, Ripley? And Ripley's like, I don't know, it's like a homecoming. And then Call is like, it's easy to get lost here. And I'm like, no shit, there's no one here.
Can we see the Golden Gate Bridge?
Gets to the bridge. And then Ripley's like, she basically like is very ominous, and she's like, something's coming, like or something. She basically because there was meant to be an Alien 5.
Yeah.
That, surprising no one, was not made directly after this.
But they made graver mistakes by doing Alien vs. Predator after this, those movies are unwatchable.
Oh my God, yes. Like this, at least Alien Resurrection is teetering on something.
Yeah.
It feels disorganized, but there could be a salvation. Alien vs. Predator.
Tough,
no.
Yeah.
I watched those recently because I went on a chronological kick where I was like, I want to watch everything in this series in chronological order, starting with Prey and then moving into Predator and then onward. But anyway, so it ends with them basically being like, Earth is destroyed. We're here now, but the danger isn't over. are people worse than the alien? Like, it's
well, they kind of are in this movie. At least
They
that's
are.
part of like a thematic. There's like some thematic value to the film being like these guys they experiment on people. It's gross.
They experiment on people.
But the original Joss Whedon script had them crash landing on Earth and then having like a final battle with aliens on Earth.
No way.
Yeah, and they cut that out. And then I didn't know that it ended that way. I think the space ending is better.
I think it's a grace. I think it's a forgiveness. I think that they offer you an olive branch at the end where it's like, look, it's Sigourney. Yeah. It's Sigourney and Winona looking out of a window at clouds. We can be okay after this.
Two like non-human human kind of things. So it's very fascinating. Yeah.
Absolute like human adjacent.
Yeah.
Othered bodies.
I think that like one of the actual positive things about I find of the Alien series of the quadrilogy, I guess we can call them. Each movie ends because they're like, I don't know if there's gonna be another one of these. So they end in such an interesting way because it opens like one of the things I love about Aliens is how elegantly it goes from being like this woman was drifting in space to being like we're in a whole other fucking movie now. I think it's like great that way, and I think even Aliens 3 does a good job of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like this movie seemed to also take that into consideration, being like we're gonna have Alien 5 after this debacle, so let's do the cut where
I think again, like coming back to the term heavy-handed, mm-hmm. I think that Ridley Scott's love his like tonal qualities that he like offered this series from the get. Like there's such a beautiful sense of like control and pacing and editing mm-hmm. in Alien, the first movie. And those moments at the ends of all the other ones where like they are falling asleep in space or peacefully looking out into space or into an atmosphere and thinking like, we did it. What will come next? We don't know, but here we are. That I think comes from him. Like that's what's the word I'm looking for? Like not his legacy, but like an echo of what he offered.
Yeah. He established a lot of things that like don't carry fully through, but that's kind of one of them, I think. Yeah.
I agree. Yes. Yeah. And also like, going back to something you mentioned 1,000 years ago about the CGI in Alien Resurrection. This happened to so many movies in the late 90s and early 2000s where they realized like we can do CGI, we no longer need to do practical effects.
Yeah.
And the beauty of Alien and Aliens is in the practical effects. Yeah. It's why they hold so well despite 30 years going by or however much. I don't do math. And and in this one they're like, let's do some nasty hasty CGI and make all these ships look like toys and weird stained boats. And
it's amazing like Alien looking and being like they did this with like miniatures. They like built it and they look so like real because they are, but they also just like I'm like this looks so fucking incredible. It's same kind of awe you get with the original Star Wars where you're just like I don't know how they did this.
It's crazy. It's exceptional. It blows the mind. And also I think it honestly lends itself really well to recreating the kind of atmospheric experience of space. Mm-hmm. Whereas like in Alien Resurrection, like all these like CGI like ships, they just like flang around through the atmosphere. They're like zippy and spinny and wingy, and they swing their boat butts everywhere, and it makes it feel silly, but also there's like too much movement. These movies did not have that much movement. Alien was a very still film. Yeah, very little running. And
I would argue we're in that era now too. Like we're still in that like where they're like we can do so many things with CGI, and like a lot of this just looks like sludge, like colored sludge.
Absolute colored sludge.
And you can tell, like me and Pri talked about this in our Eternals episode, where like certain aspects of the Eternals are like amazing. They look incredible, and then others where you're just like, did you let like an intern make this? Like it looks awful. Like it and this movie has it because I think the aliens themselves, which I don't think were all CGI. I think a lot of them were like probably puppeteers or something.
They still do puppets for sure.
I was like, well, he's like fucking, it's the best looking in the series, you know? But everything else, like the spaceships blowing up, the clouds, it's all just kind of like
look cheap.
Windows 98 kind of looking stuff, which, I mean, I'm not like I could fucking do it, but you know, it's,
No, we're talking about things that neither of us could do. We can't do anything that happened.
Yeah.
We could never make Alien Resurrection.
I can't,
no
and
matter
to
how
be
hard
fair
we
to
tried.
Sigourney, I cannot throw a basketball behind my head and score a basket. I can't do that.
Neither can she. So
we don't know that.
No,
what
no.
if it comes out?
If the story came out that she actually dunked from 30 feet backwards with one hand,
yeah.
I would honestly, I would orgasm so hard. I would pass away. I'm like, that she did it.
What if Ron Perlman was like, yeah, man, Sigourney actually, she literally leapt over my head like Vince Carter. Have you ever seen that video of that basketball player? He literally jumps over a player in the Olympic Games.
No,
it's an incredible video because he jumps and the player just passes between his legs.
Nuts.
And he dunks over him. It's like one of the most famous dunks ever recorded. But if she did that to Ron Perlman, I would be I take back everything I said.
Yeah. The film's resolved.
Yeah.
In my mind.
It's the best Alien
perfect film. It's the best one.
Oh man. Okay, let's talk about the plot of this film.
Okay, I'm ready.
So we've been going through here. So this movie is set 200 years after Alien 3.
Yes.
Ripley has died. Newt's been dead. And Hicks also been dead too.
Yes.
Yeah. They clone her with alien queen DNA and human DNA.
Yeah.
Which she comes complete with an alien queen egg or an alien embryo or something.
Yeah. Alien worm.
Yeah.
So they skip the face hugger component of it, and I think that
and just took it
is grown inside of her.
Yeah. So they take that
cell.
out, and then she's spliced with alien DNA, but also has some of Ripley's memories.
Yeah.
That aspect of her character feels like a contrivance. It feels like they're like, we need to solve a problem, and this is how we solve this problem by making up a fake thing. You know what I mean?
By saying she can still remember aspects of who she was and her source material. Yeah. They're just doing that to make us feel sad.
I guess so.
They're just doing it to make us feel sad.
Yeah, I don't know. And so so with that though, she's like a superhuman. She's super strong, fast. She's got acidic blood, which is a plot point that comes up multiple times.
This becomes very important.
Becomes very important at the end. And then all of these mercenaries arrive. They have the humans in the stasis. They're delivering them to this very unethical medical center who is...
Oh my God, on the oldest boat imaginable.
Yeah.
A boat older than original Ripley.
Yeah.
What a concept.
I really respect in the Alien universe the constant need to be like, what if we could control them? It's like, you just can't.
Oh.
Okay?
My God.
And actually, there's a scene in this movie that I really like. And it's before I've realized that this movie is not very good. But the first little bit of this movie is not bad. The first, I would say 15 minutes.
Totally.
There's a scene when they wake Ripley up, and I think they're feeding her or something. And they're asking her about the aliens, and she's like, doesn't matter because you're all just going to die.
100%.
And I thought that scene was particularly good and ominous. And I was like, this is the tone. And then the tone just shifts.
Completely.
Just shifts into gear in a different direction.
No, does it ever shift? The pivot after that is neck snapping. No, I love that despite again the displacement of self that's happened through this cloning process, that she still comes through with the innate and correct knowledge that this is a doomed experiment, and has this incredible kind of serenity and calmness within it, despite her not knowing. I don't know that she knows yet her kind of invulnerability towards them, that she that there is enough sameness that she might actually be more safe around these creatures. I don't know if she knows that, and so she from the get is just you're all gonna die, and then the underscore is probably me too.
Yeah. She's always I can't believe I woke up here again doing this shit.
This is the thing. She's so tired.
Yeah. Dude.
She's so tired.
Yeah.
She's on hour 10.
You know how in Barbie, Gina Rodriguez gives that speech about being a woman is so hard? I think Ripley should give that speech.
Honestly, Ripley used to give that speech about just wanting to wear a flattering top and be able to do okay. That's all she wants.
Sleeves. Can she just not have sleeves in her life? Yeah.
Lord.
It must be cold on that spaceship.
I'm her exposed arms. I'm it would have been so decent for them to give her a t-shirt. Please, God.
Come on. Yeah.
Did you actually? This is something that I'm not sure if it's in the theatrical, but I noticed it in the extended at the very, very beginning. Because I agree with you. I enjoyed the first 10 minutes when they're establishing the birth of this Ripley.
And what's the the conspiracy afoot in the medical side, like being like, oh,
Yes.
we're doing this to real people, and we have an alien queen, and we have aliens.
Yeah.
It's like okay, this is all looking like it's gonna be a huge mess. So I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm bought. Like,
did I notice? Yes.
in the very beginning, they show what is presumed to be Ripley in like a like in a tube, like in a tank, but they show young. They at first it looks like a child, and
I think so.
I thought, oh, is that Newt? Are they acknowledging Newt? Like, what's happening here? And then the figure in the tube kind of ages, and you realize it's Ripley.
Yeah.
But by that point, Ripley Sigourney is already doing a voiceover. Her voice is over top of.
Yeah, I think that's like the first scene. I think.
Yes,
yeah.
the very first scene. But when it shows the younger person, the voice is younger. It's not Ripley's voice.
Okay.
And so again, going back to like this birth and childhood and Newt and Ripley, it's crazy. And so yeah, it's very mysterious. The opening is very ominous. You're given and also like you're being shown like the scientists like doing the damn thing.
Yeah.
The thing and all the other ones they wanted to do, they're actually doing it. They are breeding these things and beginning to train them and observe them in a quote end quote controlled scientific facility.
we put plexiglass between them.
We put
fucking Christ,
glass. Yeah. And then Grima's in there trying to make out with the alien.
Fucking Brad Dourif is like so horny for the aliens in this. It's kind of actually like I was like, yeah, I wish more of that was in the movie.
Frankly,
that would
me
make
too.
it so weird and more creepy in a way. Not in a way, it would flat out. But,
flat out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no argument. But it totally reminded me of like the undercurrents of like sexual tension and sexual perversion from the first two films. And I was like, I dig it, honestly. Like it's that kind of like, this might, maybe this isn't quite the word for it, but like his moment with the alien, I was like, this is adult. This feels mature.
Yeah.
I'm not saying in terms of his interspecial relationship. What I mean is like the handling of that kind of like sexual symbology and kind of atmosphere or theme. I'm like, that is mature. But then so much of the movie felt immature. To me. Yeah.
As if Oppenheimer taught us anything, it's that scientists love to fuck, and so he was just.
Oh my gosh!
This movie kind of walked so that Oppenheimer could run with.
They all wanted to fuck, and you could tell from the get go in these establishing scenes of Sigourney. Again, they're like, oh, they all want to fuck her.
Yeah. They're just like a bunch of men still trapped on a fucking...
They grew a woman. Yeah. They're calling her it. And yet, I know I'm like, all of you are rock hard for this metahuman.
The other guy who plays the one science-y commander guy who survives
Ren.
And like is with them the whole time.
Yeah.
He's a great actor, but he's also just like so threateningly creepy lots of ways.
His performance was actually quite intense. Like it felt kind of like theatrical and also smarmy and like it felt kind of surreal and sinister. He kind of rocked me right from the game, the way that he talked to her and then talked about her. And what was his line where she's like, you can't teach them? He's like, why not? We're teaching you. And I was like, the shade coming off of this man. Like
he's so hateful.
He's so hateful. No,
it is like just the whole medical scene of it. Like I find like Paul Reiser in Aliens, right? He's so corporately scary. Yeah. In the way that he's like he's kind of a nice guy until you get between him and the thing he wants, which is this thing that he doesn't understand.
Yes.
Whereas in this movie, it's like they cast like two incredibly intense, creepy actors to play these people who are like sick and perverse enough to do this to people.
100%.
Yeah. And
there's no longer like the guise of like corporate bureaucracy and human resource department, that has fallen away.
Yeah.
We are looking at like uncut, like disturbed scientific prowess. These people are unchecked, unobserved, and like in the sauce of it. And they love every second of it because they want to fuck the alien and get fucked by the alien.
Grima Wormtongue is like, he's great. He's great in this. Brad Dourif is like such a good kind of just creepy fucking guy.
That's the thing. Some of the casting in this, exceptional. Love these people like who are products of like the 90s and early 2000s. Like I'm like, I love what they do. Great casting.
If you're like going down the list of like not even just like there's like names who are all exceedingly capable of giving incredible performances. And then there's people like the guy from CSI we talked about, Gary Doran, who is like, he's like, oh, I know that guy, and he's good. Michael Wincott and Brad Dourif, like, you're just like, I've seen these guys pop up all the time, and but just the movie fails them.
It fails them so badly.
Yeah, so the crew of mercenaries arrive. There's the famous basketball scene that the debate will rage on forever. How they did it, we don't know. We can't tell.
We'll never know.
No one will know. It's a secret that they'll take to their grave.
No, yeah,
whether Sigourney can play basketball. Yeah.
The non-disclosure agreement's ironclad around that scene.
If I see in like Sigourney's next movie where she's coincidentally like playing basketball and she's just like, I'll know she's a listener.
No, oh my God.
She has something to prove.
She's here, Sigourney.
She has something to prove.
Sigourney, you don't need to prove anything.
I bet did you ever see Master Gardener?
No.
She plays like a woman who's okay with a certain character being like a white supremacist. I bet there's a cut scene where they play basketball against each other.
100% she dunks from 30 feet backwards.
Like, take that, Joel Egerton.
That's actually her clause. She's like, if I play basketball in a movie, I will dunk from 30 feet backwards with one hand.
They're like, we don't have the budget. She's like, you have to.
You need to rig up that.
If you want the weave, you need. If you want the weave. I don't know. And that's how she talks about herself.
She does not call herself the weave. I can't.
Only on the court. On the
court. Oh my God, Sigourney the Weave. Well, that actually caused such like a schism in my brain that I couldn't remember her last name. Like, oh my God. Oh, okay.
So, but Winona Ryder, pre petty theft Winona Ryder, I think. Who knows? Maybe she was stealing at this time.
It was pre.
Yeah, pre being caught. Let's just put it that way.
God knows.
I love Winona Ryder. I'm poking fun at her.
We're poking fun.
She's a great actress, and I think she's okay in this. She finds out that Ripley's there, and she's like spliced with an alien. And she would have an alien inside of her, so she tries to kill her.
Yes.
And then she finds on this medical facility that has these absolutely absurd prisons. She tries to kill her, and then she's like, oh, they already took the alien out. And so Winona's like, well, fuck, all right.
Well, now, what do I do with you?
Eventually the alien escapes. They are smart enough to know to kill one alien to melt through the floor and the other thing.
Oh, Ricky and I went so deep into that. Well, specifically because, yes, I'm like, that is the logical conclusion. Mm-hmm. Like, good job, boys. You did it. You figured out how to get out of the box. But Ricky and I were stuck on like, okay, so Grima showed them the button that shoots like the cold mist into cold air into, which is
alien repellent mist.
Yeah. So he shows them the button. Uh-huh. They learn instantly the button's bad, and he's like, and he says something condescending. He's like, I want to fuck you so bad, but you're so dumb, or something like that. Yeah, God knows.
He's this real like kink thing where he's like trying to kiss them, and then he hits it's very like dom sub kind of deal.
There's punishment taking place here, but we know that not all people are consenting parties.
No.
And then they get from bad button, they jump from bad button all the way to acid blood, eat through grate on ground.
Yeah.
There is no learning moment, like through maybe some kind of like punishment device in their container that made one of them bleed, that showed them like, you can melt through the floor. I was like, from a learning scaffolding point, I'm like, why did they not melt through the floor 100 years ago?
Yeah, it begs the question why they just figured that out now.
Yeah,
today, because they were like this. If he hits that fucking button one more time, I'm melting you through the floor. That's Steve.
Was this just like like plane crash in the Andes cannibalism? Where they're like, we're pushing this out as far as possible, but eventually one of us is going to go, and we all know that, right?
Like the one alien is like, he's like, it's not that bad in here. Like it's
here.
Confined, but every once in a while we like. And if we don't go near the glass, they don't hit us with a spray. Like, what's the worst that could happen? And one of them's like, I'm made to kill.
I need to get out of here. Yeah. And they look over at that one. They're like, Jordan, you're just saying that because you're the smallest.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you wouldn't survive Jordan. When the predators come to hunt.
Yeah.
And then they kill. Yeah. Yeah. I think, it does. It is convenient. Let's put it that way. That's okay. I should not hold such micro moments in such scrutiny throughout this film, because I'll never go home. There's too many. The problem, in my opinion, in lots of like bad movies, it is a problem when things are there's too many conveniences that like stack up one after another.
Yeah.
But many movies are based off of the fact that like one really unlikely thing happened. And that's okay. I think most movies can survive that. But once it's like starts to get a little insane, you're like, this is just to make the plot move. That's all.
Exactly.
And I think this is one of those moments, because like
we need them to get out.
Yeah, it's like we need them to get out, and we need them to get out now. But it's like, well, they could have gotten it out yesterday. They could have gotten it out 3 weeks ago. They could have gotten it out 50 years ago. There's no real reason why. So yeah, I understand your complaint, and this movie is not very good, so it suffers for it. But it happens. Yeah.
This is the thing.
That's all right. So the aliens escape. Chaos obviously ensues. They try to evacuate the station.
Oh, that evacuation scene! All of those.
Good. I like that.
It
actually.
It was high. Yeah. It was intense. Like all of them trying to get into the ships, and then the alien getting into the ship, and then him having to throw a grenade into the escape pod.
I want to see that guy play basketball against Sigourney with his aim with that fucking grenade.
Oh, I know.
It's like he just casually just like, I can do this.
He bowls.
Amazing. Yeah.
You know.
There's nothing else to do on that plane. Yeah.
In his office. Part of his rider for taking this military contract, he's like, I need a bowling alley.
If we're gonna have a ship the size of the moon, I need a bowling alley, and it's somewhere. You have enough prisons to torture the people that you bring aboard, that fellow Earthlings.
I can have a bowling lane.
You have a basketball court,
and he sinks it.
Yeah.
He strikes that grenade directly into that pod.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. And then he just gets dead immediately.
And that going back to your mention of like the violence and gore of this movie, like all the other alien movies are plenty violent and plenty gory.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are gross. But I think often, like, I don't know, this movie was really gross.
Oh,
like
there's parts of this movie that very gross me out a lot.
Oh yeah. Like he reaches back and pulls a piece of his own brain / skull in front of his face and looks at it, and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like it's like Hellraiser.
It's very like kind of the intent was to make it like a comedy, like a black comedy.
I see it.
It's not a very good one, but I understand that. It's just like of all of the properties you could make into a black comedy, you're just kind of like, yeah, let's pick the most serious sci-fi film series ever,
like incredibly lauded for its style and grace and tone
and like heady themes and like all of these things. And it's so funny because even like you have like Ridley Scott, James Cameron, and David Fincher, none of which have funniness attached to their name, really.
No.
Like they make serious films. And
oh my gosh, Stark films, Stark scripts.
Yeah. Like they have made movies with like funny bits in them, but like, yeah, it's just such a weird vibe to take into this series. That's all. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The mercenary crew, they're like stuck on this boat with almost no one except for Ren, the other scientist, the other soldier, and they're like, in an emergency, the ship goes back to Earth, which is bad. You don't want the aliens to come back to Earth, which they're really dicing with death when they're like, oh, let's collect them right above Earth. Like, it's ridiculous. So they have to they want to blow up the ship, get to their ship, the Betty, and blow up the Auriga.
Yes.
Yeah.
To prevent it from reaching Earth. Again, question is, why? Because as per the extended cut, Earth doesn't have anything on it anymore, and so I'm like, what's the threat?
Yeah, like what has happened exactly?
Well, yeah.
Also, this is the point where Gary Dourdan has just a terrible line. Like,
which one? I feel like I know which one you're going to say, but I can't remember it perfectly.
Winona's like, we'll go to the Betty and we'll blow up the ship. And he grabs her and he's like, not with us on it. And it's like, obviously, dude. It's like, she means everyone. Like, she's not like, I'm going to run away from you. She's like, fuck, what are you talking about?
No, because I'm like, dude, you're on the ship that needs to blow up. Yeah. You got to get to the Betty. They want to go to the Betty because that's the one that's not blowing up. Yeah. What has happened? There's a bunch of lines throughout this thing where I'm like, why are we saying that at all?
Yeah.
Why are we saying that at all?
And then, so Michael Wincott also dies, which I think is actually a very good scene when he kind of like, he kind of trails off into that one corridor and then
the suspense of that.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. And then I have to say, this is also James Cameron has this problem too. The inconsistency with which the acid blood actually affects people.
Don't get me started.
It's just
don't get me started.
Oh my God. You have to suspend your disbelief in this regard.
Your brain has to go soft, your eyes have to go fuzzy, because like when Christy takes acid to the face on the stairs or on the ladder, I'm like, that face is gone.
Yeah.
But then he looks back up and I'm like, that's just a cute scar.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look like you've got like lots of freckles.
Yeah. He's still pretty.
You're still pretty as hell. You got both your eyes.
Yeah.
Which is honestly such an interesting kind of departure from the level of gore in other moments of this movie that arguably didn't need as much gore. Where I'm like, we watched a man pull a piece of his own brain and look at it like Hannibal style, like, and yet Christy takes acid fully to the face, and we're not seeing bone. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he just kind of like rubs it off like on his sleeve.
He was like, oof, ow. But yet it was bad enough that he's like, arms don't work anymore.
Yeah.
Can't climb ladder.
Even in like Aliens, like you have scenes of just like one guy does get his face like almost burned off.
Oh, liquefied.
But then like Vasquez has like she's like firing and like there's everything spraying everywhere. So it's like, it's inconsistent.
It makes no sense. Yeah, there's literally a scene where they find acid that's gone through the ground. I think this is in Aliens. They see acid that's gone through the ground and it goes floors below.
Yeah, that's an Alien.
Alien.
That is like the first thing, right? And that level of intensity is never matched again. Basically.
Never. Because they knew that. I think that they knew immediately, like, we made a mistake.
That's like a lot. Like, cause
that's incredible. Yeah. That's like ship destroying.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
Which is what, again, becomes a plot point later in the film where it is actually ship destroying. But anyway, the acid is very inconsistent.
It's something you got to get over, I think. Yeah,
you just have to accept it. So many things to accept when watching this movie. Oh my god,
so many things to accept.
I've never been more open. I've never been more open and absorbent when watching.
This is a safe space where you can talk about how you feel.
The safest one.
I expose myself talking about Firefly. I've said things on this podcast like I don't like the Lord of the Rings extended cut editions that could get me burned at the stake 10 years ago.
You're so brave, John.
I'm so brave.
You're so brave.
Thank you. God. I just low blow on a movie that's not very good. Yeah. All right. So the part that really gets me is when she finds the lab, which is I find human experimentation splicing stuff to be really disturbing. And that's the most effective part of this film, I think. It is gross.
It's so upsetting.
Yeah.
Like, it's so deeply upsetting. It also, I think what disturbed me the most out of it was when she does find the living failed clone.
Yeah.
And you realize that clone is just on a bed. And that like hours and days have gone by. Weeks maybe. I don't know how long they were schooling up Ripley 8 for. How much time passed, but presumably that clone was created before this iteration of Ripley. Ugh. How long has that poor mutated creature just been stuck on that bed waiting to die?
Yeah.
A flat bag of a person. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And then Ripley having to make the call to flamethrower this being. There's like no other effective or quick way to put it out of its misery. Must flamethrower it. And she hadn't flamethrower it since Aliens.
Yeah.
When she was using it to kill aliens, then having to use it as like a pseudo alien on
but also
a false
that has
self.
Has your own face.
Your own face and voice.
How fucked up is that?
So
man?
disturbing.
Okay, so I mentioned Annihilation earlier.
Yeah.
I think me and you have talked about
we
how
have
the
100%.
bear
the bear made me cry in the theater.
Yeah, it's like really shocking, and I find it so disturbing. And in my rewatch yesterday, it's such a fucking good movie. Mm-hmm. But in my rewatch yesterday, like I still find that scene like really disturbing. Not because Tuva Novotny, the actress, she's so good in that movie, and she's so like giving such an empathetic performance, and then she just gets fucking eaten and turned into half a bear.
It's nuts.
And when you see the bear's face, part of her skull is on the side of the bear.
And the voice
it's
being
so
interstitched.
Awful.
No, it's psychologically very startling.
Yeah.
Like it really shook the core of me. I cried in the theater, looked at my partner in the eye and said, I don't know. Like
it's a really rough one,
I don't know, man. Like and this got close to it, especially for like, 1997. I was like, folks, like that's pretty grim.
I find we're not going to skip ahead, but I will say that I find the alien human hybrid dude at the end to be one of the most disgusting creatures ever made on film. So awful.
Chilling.
Yeah.
Chilling.
Just like wet and steamy and gross.
We're gonna.
Yeah. Okay.
We will get to it. I have a lot to say.
So then there's like the set piece where they swim through the water, which is incredibly long.
Oh my, how'd they do it?
And then not including the climbing up the ladder whole part. That's like a very, very long kind of set piece. The important thing we find out is that Call is an android because she gets shot and then she finds her way back and is like, look at me. I'm still alive.
She got shot and she's like, I'm going to play human as long as possible. I'm just going to starfish into the water.
Yeah. And then some way gets out.
Here, it becomes the hero,
safely.
Opens the door.
Yeah.
It's like not a problem.
And then locks the other guy. She like sends the aliens to the bad guy who gets killed to death.
Yes, killed to death, definitely. At what point do they find the surviving human who was one of the surrogate bodies?
It's before the water sequence because he swims with them. Leland Orser, that actor who like they call up to be like, hey, can you play a guy who freaks out eventually? He's like, absolutely, that's who I play.
Small glasses guy.
Yeah.
Sweaty small glasses guy.
An incredible actor.
He had one of my favorite scenes. One of the scenes that felt like, oh, this is real. The scene is getting me to do, like, my heart is beating.
Which one?
When they first discover him and he asks them, what's inside me?
Yes.
And they are all talking around him and he repeats what's inside me over and over and over again.
He's a great actor.
By the end of that, I'm like, I had hand to chest, clenching my chest. Like the suspense and the upset of that scene really got me. So that is one I want to include on my 5 fingers or less list of scenes where I was like,
they're
that
also
was real.
talking about like they're just like, well, we should kill him, and he's just there
right in front of him, and they're alluding to there's a thing inside you, there's a thing, and he's like, what is happening? And very frightening. Frightening.
It has this like great and frustrating part where Sigourney Weaver is like, there's a thing inside you and in a couple hours it's going to burst out of your chest and you're going to die. But then she that stupid line where she's like, I'm that thing's mother. It's like, shut up.
Oh, I'm the monster's mother. So that's the thing. Her performance and her writing swings back and forth between a recognizable Ripley, like the one that I know where she's straightforward, she's pragmatic, and she's blunt but still compassionate, and her being like this slinky snake woman whose head's like all like Ricky at one point was like, do you think she's like intoxicated? Like she just looks just like she's like definitely like on substance right now. Like in some way throughout this entire thing.
It's just a weird performance.
Not Sigourney, but Ripley is like vibing, and there's like this supernatural performance. It happens in movies now as well, and people are like, oh, you mean I'm not totally human, I'm part other thing? I'm gonna make my hands into claw shapes and drop my head down, and
it's a lot. It's too much
serpentine, and like I'm the monster's mother, and I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah,
dude. I don't like her performance, but it's not her fault. Like it's not Sigourney's fault.
No, it's not.
I gotta bring myself back to it. Yeah, I know.
She's elbow deep in this thing.
I mean, she got paid $11 million.
She's fine. No, and Ricky and I thought, I'm like, you know what? Maybe she just looked at everyone. She's like, I want to be the most badass. I want to be the alien. That's
why
what
not?
She entered the writing room and was like, I want to be the alien. I want to have a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and I think she's having a great time.
I also like. It wouldn't surprise me if like, I mean, we've seen it with like superhero movies where lots of people are clearly just like fucking sick of playing this role, but get paid a lot, and it's like if you're not Robert Downey Jr., it's like I don't really have that much screen time. Yeah. Like Sigourney is probably like, I was sick of playing this role by the end of Alien 3, but if I could just get to fuck around and kind of do whatever I want, then fine, whatever. And she's like, there's 7 other actors, so I'm not using as much screen time as I was.
Honestly, yeah, that I noticed that in the extended scene between the head of the mercenaries and the head of the general guard. I'm like, wow, we've like been away from Ripley for like a half an hour. What's going on?
She's like she's not really the main character. I kind of think Winona is. Winona's kind of like the protagenist.
They do a bad job, but she's meant to be.
Yeah,
she's meant to be new Ripley.
Yeah,
Ripley's new daughter. Yeah,
like she's Ripley is kind of meant to be like the kind of like the Gandalf of the gang, and Winona's kind of meant to be the main character.
Absolutely,
yeah. And you're right,
Sigourney. Absolutely, Ripley 8 is the Gandalf of this movie, making Winona's call the Frodo.
Yeah, absolutely. I stand by it.
What have you done?
but yet you're right. They do a bad job of it too.
Yeah, they do.
So anyway, like I mean, fuck this plot so much, but they eventually Ripley finds the nest of the queen, and then she sees the birth,
falls into it, which is like a very famous, well-known shot from this film, which is actually kind of artful and interesting. It was her getting slowly absorbed by the womb,
the detail of the creepy detail of it is very cool.
And the breathing of it, and her also kind of this exposed, vulnerable pose that she was in, very Madonna. The religious figure, the virginal figure, not Madonna, the pop star.
Why not both?
I'm like a little bit of both. And I think it again also gestures to kind of like that sexual like atmosphere. I've been pulling for a word. It is symbology, that gesture towards sexuality. That or I'm like, this is erotic. Like she's laying, her arms are back. And she's about to be absorbed.
Surrendering to the
absolutely, and it's wet and slimy, and
it envelops her in this.
It envelops her. It vores her. And but it had a maturity to it. Mm-hmm. It was And
then she sees the birth of this disgusting thing.
Nuts with Grima on the wall going, a beautiful. This is the gift you gave her, Ripley. A woman's reproductive system. She gets to experience real birth, and I'm like, holy shit!
Yeah.
What is
I
happening?
find it so gross. And the thing, you know what's it's so weird about it too is like every time, and again, this is why I think it's the most effective. I'm not going to say it's good, but the most effective part of this film to me is that like I find that creature so disgusting, but also so pathetic.
I know.
And then it dies the most horrible, unfair death you could ever die.
It was disturbing.
And it's just like, I don't know, can't you get along with your child?
It felt, it was, it felt, it honestly, it felt like an apt kind of climax cultivation point of what was like human beings being so bad, and like this is what they ended up creating. Like that in all the through line through all these movies is that humans attempt to possess a power they can't understand, and they are punished for it so intensely, and yet they never learn their lesson. And in this culmination with this absolutely cursed being felt like that makes sense. This is like the inverse of the pre-Ripley 7 through 1 clones, where it's like, oh, we made the thing. We did the damn thing. And it is so haunted and wrong that like it simply must die. And
it like has a sense of being too. Like
fully.
With the eyes, I think that's what they're trying to get. They make a shot of like the full-on eyes, and you're just like, and it looks vaguely like a skull.
Yes.
And you're supposed to get a sense that it's like, with the aliens, you don't really get a sense that they're more than like smart dogs.
Totally.
But with this one, you're like, it has a sense of self.
It does.
In a way.
It's the difference between it's mammalian versus ant hive.
Yeah.
There's an individuality, there is a familial bond happening, there is an attachment happening.
It makes me really sick.
I'm literally queasy talking about
revolting.
It is the moment that it emerges and you're like, okay, this at first you're like, it looks like a skull. It doesn't have eyes. And then it has these weird little like booby pouches, these weird little peck flaps.
It looks like the barbarian in Barbarian. It's like,
nuts body. And then it's wet, but also has skin. Sticky.
Yeah.
And then its mouth truly cracks open like a pita pocket. The jaw on that thing is crazy. And then it still has like the alien kind of like crown shaft thing on the back of its head. And then you're right, like they reveal to you like, oh, you didn't think it had eyes? Oh, it does.
Yeah.
They're just back in there a bit.
It's so vile.
And when it's illuminated by the light, you realize like, oh, these are like mammalian eyes.
Yeah.
Like they are wet. They are orbs in a socket. And
it's like looking at Ripley.
It's looking
at you.
And like a dog.
Yeah.
It has eyebrows.
Yeah.
It has bone structures around its eyes that it can manipulate to create an emotional expression.
Yeah.
There's moments where it looks like when it is attacking Call and she rolls under a piece of machinery and it's reaching for her and touching her face, and she looks at it and it makes a sad face and kind of whines.
I know, it's so
and she's
so
like,
horrible.
what? And then it's like fuck no, and like roars at her, and she gets scared, and it's like, this is a child, an angry, reactive child that is also so powerful and dangerous, and also fully like adult form. Like it's pupa in adult form. And then it has this moment where it actually puts its fingers inside Call's like bullet wound, which is the second time that's happened to Call. Ripley put her fingers inside Call. And so again, bringing back in this weird like mother-daughter interplay, as well as like sex, where it's like Call is Ripley's like now new pseudo daughter, but then Ripley kind of like weird fucks her bullet hole and then the monster does too, and I'm like, what's happening? It's crazy, John. It's crazy.
Is it the uncanny valley that
Fully.
we're talking about here? Like, but the uncanny valley I find is like, it's like disturbing, but this is like, it provokes like real disgust in me.
Let's hone in on uncanny valley. Uncanny valley is where something is similar enough but different enough that it becomes grotesque and horrifying.
Yeah.
But I think that everything in this movie it's not similar. Like there's not enough sameness. I think it's just psychologically grueling. I think it is just disturbing.
And I think that always illustrates to me not only like the success of the film, but also like this one singular success of this movie, but also what this movie could have been, which is like, this could have been like an incredibly disturbing body horror film.
Absolutely.
And it's not, it's like, it's a sci-fi action film instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It has some of the sensibilities of body horror films, but it hasn't commit fully to the bit because it doesn't know what it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
It's straddling 4 different genres, 4 different approaches, and one of them is body horror. It could have been great. That thing at the end is so scary. And its moment with Ripley when it's like they're rubbing their faces all over each other. Oh,
gross.
And the handography of both them touching each other. I'm like, this is like I'm silent. Like I'm silent.
And then she like burns through the window, and it just rips its entire body to like liquid. And it just goes through a fucking blender. It
just gets exited.
Yeah.
It's a Cadbury cream egg.
It's so gross, dude.
It's so gross.
And it's like so pathetic. No, it's like, I hate it. I hate that.
Jean-Pierre made us watch the entire thing. There was no mercy. We watched every minute of it being systematically emptied into space like a bag, and it crying out, and with its sad eyebrows looking at Ripley and reaching for her.
And she's like saying, I'm sorry.
She's
like
having like this mother thing, like, I had to kill my child because my child was never meant to exist. It's so fucked up.
I know. It's so bizarre how extreme of a reaction I have to that scene every time. And the rest of the movie, I'm just kind of like, fuck this shit.
No, yeah. The rest of the movie, I feel like I'm piss and vinegar. The rest of the movie, I'm like, flames are coming out of my mouth. By the end of it, I'm crying. I'm like, no one should have to see or do this.
So disgusting.
And then again, our only saving grace is when they let them descend through Earth's atmosphere and look at clouds. And I'm like, maybe everything will be okay after I watched a mother's son get sucked through a window. It's
how much more abuse do you have to take? Yeah.
The fact that they pivot from that scene to them watching clouds is like,
I'm
like, did you think this was enough?
Yeah, it sucks.
It sucks.
And that's where the movie ends.
It's nuts. And that's where it ends. They're like, we did it. And I'm like, you two are not, like, you've seen too much. I'm like, you don't get to be people. You're too hurt. It was too bad.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to
do after this? As an android and a half alien?
I'm going to open a B&B.
Yeah.
I'm going to start a coffee shop.
Move to like the Catskills.
Oh my God. I'm going to Palm Springs.
Yeah.
Just kick it.
Write your memoir.
That's it.
Yeah.
What would it be called?
The time I had to watch my child get sucked out of...
My fourth child.
Yeah.
My fourth child, none of them actually mine.
Yeah. It's like she got all of the memories, and all of them were my cat, my surrogate husband, both my kids, and my alien son all got fucking murdered.
All got fucking iced throughout this whole thing. And yet I live. I'm 240 years old.
And I'm only qualified to drive a forklift.
No, yeah, I'm still just a lieutenant first class.
They still won't promote me, and
look, I'm on Earth now. I'm doing loaders. Just having like, honestly, like some kind of adjacent immigrant experience where she's like, I'm actually a pilot, but I'm doing loaders on Earth.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm an alien. Like, what is happening?
She's like sitting at her fucking blue collar job, and her boss is yelling at her, and she's like, do you know what I've been through?
Do you know what I've been through?
Yeah.
Look at my nails. They're black and pointy now. Like I have mascara on.
He just flicks blood on him. Just like, yeah, you like that?
No.
Oh, Alien Resurrection, man. This is a fucking movie. Holy shit.
It's the camera. Oh, I keep going back to the camera work again. I'm like, the camera is on a string attached to a fixed point and it's just swinging around the room.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Again, like, and this is a culmination of a lot of problems, but like, when you think of just the series of Alien, despite what you might think of Alien 3, you're still kind of like, yeah, well, David Fincher is a good filmmaker.
Yeah.
And these other movies are so artful, and this one just seems like so workmanlike, but not in a good way. It doesn't turn into like kind of like, it feels like such a mercenary job by Jeannot and Joss Whedon and Sigourney. Like, it just kind of feels like, I don't know, did anyone want this?
Everyone was a mercenary on that.
To be fair to Joss, I don't know, did I say this before? But like, to be fair to Joss Whedon too, he originally wrote the script with Newt as a character.
Oh, I didn't know
as
that.
like the Sigourney character, but the studio was like, Sigourney wants to do it, and if she wants to do it, no, I think they were like, if Sigourney wants to do it, we need to have Ripley back.
Name attached. So I can totally acknowledge that, like, Joss had a direction that, like, and it just kind of got displaced from him. That's fine.
Yeah. It's too bad his career completely faltered. He just didn't do anything after this at all.
Nail,
he never did
coffin.
Anything interesting ever again.
Yeah, he started and ended with Alien Resurrections, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not true.
No.
No, he's just fine.
He's done all right.
He's gonna be okay. Just going back to what you were saying, like, I find that the Alien movies that are successful have a level of grace and spaciousness to them that I think exhibits like a lot of control. Knowing that, like, this is a big a big world, like, it's a big built world. It has a lot in it. It can be very horrifying, but like, I find that the newer movies are working hard to kind of recreate and honor the in space no one can hear you scream kind of energy of it. Alien Resurrection did not get that memo. Everyone heard everyone screaming. Space has never been louder than in that movie.
I think that, like, listeners to this pod and yourself would know that I love Ridley Scott, and I think he's like one of the greatest living filmmakers. And I feel like if the internet had been around during like Alien Resurrection the way it is now, every couple months we would have like a new Ridley Scott interview for him being like, I'm fucking taking this shit back.
No, seriously.
I'm taking this franchise back for everybody.
My gosh.
Because like I really admire that while Prometheus had a rough reception and has grown in lots of people's estimation, I admire that Ridley Scott was like, fuck this, I am doing this now. He's like, because he's just so talented. And I happen to think, I love Prometheus, I happen to think Covenant is also a very good film. So,
oh yes.
And I don't know if he'll ever do another one, but I like, if it happens, I know that there's a TV show being like produced by the fucking guy who made fucking Fargo, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm tentative about that because I can't stand Fargo very much.
Oh, I've only watched 10 seconds of it. I don't have anything to offer about that point specifically.
It didn't do a lot for me. Let's put it that way.
My concern is that they won't take it seriously enough, because
I know I want them to. I want it to be hardcore.
I want it to be hardcore. I want it to be understated with extreme punctuations of fear and intensity.
Yeah. The very successful Alien movies, in my opinion, they have like a theme that kind of like glows within them.
Absolutely, and glows within them. Yeah, they have a homing kind of tether. I think
the symbolic stuff with like the resurrection and pre-resurrection films of like motherhood, sexuality, and birth is like so strong. And what I like about the direction that like Prometheus and Covenant have gone in is like the nature of creation.
Absolutely.
And I really love and the philosophical
like
weight.
It feels like a natural progression completely.
I really like that, and I want that to be one of my big complaints about TV nowadays that makes it such a slog is like they're just kind of like, what are you saying about any, like, who cares? Like, you're not saying anything. You don't have like a theme that I feel like you're driving at. You're just kind of like writing plot that's kind of fun. Yeah. And I find that like I'm just fucking old man yelling at a cloud, but like Alien is so rich in that area, and I'm just like, I want you to have that. I want it to really make me think about that kind of stuff.
I'm with you. I would appreciate it if they approached it with some philosophical, conceptual rigor.
Yeah.
Like
please.
It started there, and like, but again, without being too like high and mighty and highfalutin about it. Alien, the first one, was, again, it's understated, but the symbology and the concept and philosophy are all there, and they are a really incredible guiding force. And and I think that it's evident in 3 and 4 how like that plot was lost, and it became about just the built world itself. It just became about like, oh, aliens, they're crazy and frightening.
Slasher, the slasher film.
Exactly.
Kind of thing,
and so I'm with you. I'm like, if this TV show coming out, I want them to make me think about things.
Yeah.
That's what the Alien did, despite it being what it is.
Yeah.
It is very successful in that way. So yeah, I'm with you. And even Aliens being a full-on action movie, being much more like fast-paced and rough, it still had that kind of philosophical clarity, both in all ways, in style and in tone and in the concept that they're trying to communicate about corporation, motherhood, sex, birth, and also women and men and sexism and action versus bureaucracy and like all of it. Like it felt tight.
I also think James Cameron, when you look at the way it's progressed, when you look at Alien, it's like you could go in 2 different directions.
Totally.
One of them being like the sex, mother, birth kind of thing, which I think James Cameron was clearly more interested in, and he emphasized that a lot with Aliens. But like then when you come back to Ridley Scott, it's clear that Ridley Scott was kind of like, I want to know where that fucking spaceship came from.
100%.
That's the shit I'm interested in.
Yes.
And not saying either or is better, it's just the way it went. But like when you get to Prometheus, you're like, oh, this is kind of what Ridley Scott really liked, even though the movie has all of the like you said, the original Alien has the core of these themes.
Because exactly. No, you see him in it. You know what he's interested in. He builds it in full on mystery ship. A mystery ship, 1979. He's like, I'm putting a mystery ship in it. I want to get to a movie where I get to talk about the mystery ship.
He flings open like all of these doors, and creators can kind of go through them. And I hope that's like, I hope the show is like, I hate to use the word, but like kind of brave enough to delve into those themes rather than just like kind of what TV is now, which is not as good.
just generally not as good.
No,
I agree with you. I feel like Alien, almost using the cloning process and all of those like ruined clones as like a metaphor. I feel like Alien 4 was like kind of the natural progression of what James Cameron started. Like James Cameron did it well. He showed us a direction, and then we just got a bit further. We just got further and further away from the source material. And we ended up with flat Ripley on a bed, like, and that's what it is in form and in concept. Yeah, Alien 4 is Pancake Ripley, and I'm glad that Prometheus and Covenant are pulling it back towards that, which just a tonal quality that I find classy as fuck.
Yeah,
classy.
And they're like incredibly flawed films, but like I probably said this on the Covenant one about Prometheus and Covenant. It's like, I don't know, at least they're just like trying to do a thing. Like,
I know.
You know,
trying to give us something. Like they're building something.
Yeah, I think like lots of the complaints about Prometheus are ultimately kind of like, well, okay, but like overall, that's like a good movie. So
I think I agree. I think it's a decent film, and I think that it is better when held in context and when watched in context. Like I enjoyed Prometheus. I didn't like it very much when I first watched it, but since watching it again when I'm doing a watch through of all of them, I'm like, yeah, you're good. Yeah. Because I'm like, you're part of a series in my mind. Like,
I think a lot of people actually have that experience now. It's like it caused a lot of fervor when it came out because it was like early 20s for us.
Yeah.
And like caused a lot of people, because also coinciding with like the birth of like people online yelling at each other is like, fuck Prometheus, it's so stupid. But as we've like, people have kind of like grown with it and matured, it's over 10 years old now, which is fucking insane to say. And it's like, no, that was like, man, compared to the blockbusters we have today, it's like we didn't know how good we had it.
We didn't know how good it was.
Yeah.
No, Prometheus was kind. It was a kindness.
Okay. I think that's a really good place to end.
Let's end
that
there.
Prometheus is a good movie. This one is okay.
Alien Resurrection was bad.
We have killed Alien Resurrection.
Thank God. It needed to die.
Yeah.
We put the acid on the glass and Alien Resurrection got its guts
We've
sucked out.
Sucked it out by its asshole
Even
out
its
of the
skull,
window.
Its skull went through.
Into cold space.
It's dead for sure.
Thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome. This is very fun.
Friend, fellow Alien fan.
Yeah. Esteemed colleague.
Yeah,
scholarly
in
peer.
the cinema arts, scholarly peer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've been, it has been such a pleasure to offer my absolutely like isolated and singular relationship with the Alien franchise in a shared space and to talk with someone about it, because I spent a lot of time thinking about and watching these movies. So
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.